You're listening to the Vocabbett podcast, where I help students improve their vocabulary for the SAT, ACT, and life itself using my unique and research-backed story-based method. On this podcast, I'm sharing the best tips and tricks for a more enriched vocabulary and pain-free test day. Hello, and welcome to episode 31 of the Vocabbett podcast. I'm Erica Abbott, a former English and history teacher, the author of the young adult novel Ahead of Her Time, and the founder of the eponymously named vocabulary company, Vocabbett. I hope everyone's gotten a chance to unwind a bit this past week. We visited family for the 4th, and it was so great to get out a bit after staying put these past few months. While we were gone, our local school district announced their plans for the fall. And you either have to choose 100% in-person schooling or 100% virtual. And you have to decide by July 10th, which is a pretty tight window. They do say you'll have the option to change at some point, but they are asking you to sign a commitment form by July 10th. You might have a hybrid option where you live, or no in-person option, or no virtual option. But the bottom line is people are starting to decide what they're going to do in the fall. I spoke in episode 23 about how, in some ways, all of this is a good opportunity to make larger changes to our education system, to address things like bullying, anxiety, and the sheer amount of wasted time that is built into the school day. But like I predicted, a lot of that isn't happening. And that's fine. Schools have so much to deal with right now without making other overhauls. But after learning about the tentative plans for the fall, I'm wondering if not only are we not making proactive changes to make the system better, but whether we're also making reactive changes that could actually make the existing system worse. A good comparison for what we're going through right now, I think, is the airline industry. You have a model that originally worked pretty well, but after reactive changes to increase security, metal detectors, taking out liquids, taking off your shoes, pat-downs, naked body scanners, all that good stuff, flying isn't the most pleasant experience anymore. And similarly, our education system worked pretty well for many years, but just like the security measures at the airport make you safer but take away from your experience, I think some of the changes we're making to schools right now might do the same thing. And just to be clear, I don't think schools are making the wrong decision by mandating masks or eliminating community gatherings. But let's be real, something can make you safer and diminish your experience at the same time. Cowering in one room with a mask and a gallon of hand sanitizer, stripping away changing classrooms, shared lunch, lockers, community gatherings, all the places where you interact with people, it's just not going to be as much fun as it was before. And unfortunately, while there isn't a lot of room for innovation or competition in the airline industry, it's absurd to think that we can't innovate a third option in education, at least for the time being. What I'd like to know is, are you interested in a third option? If I created a Vocabbett Academy, so to speak, where I taught entire courses, not just SAT prep, would that help you? These courses would be designed for this purpose, for this time. I'm not talking about taking a physical course and putting it on a Zoom call, but something that I'm creating right now that's hands-on, engaging, and different. Would that help you? I see two options for this. The first would be self-managed courses at a lower price point. I create the course and the lessons, but it's more of a homeschooling model. The parents would be in charge of implementing it and providing feedback and running it, so to speak. The second option would be I would essentially be your teacher, and I will create the most fun year where you will also learn more than you have ever learned in your life. And then we'd do it again the next year if you're still enjoying it with new material, or you could go back to your regular school. It's totally up to you. I do see this having a long-term future, though. When we can start traveling again, I would love to take my students on trips to all the places we're learning about. It would be like school reinvented. I would do English and history, and it would really be an English history course, 2-in-1, which is intentional because they complement each other so well when done right. You guys, the families, the parents, the students, would be responsible for figuring out math and science. But I could definitely point you in the direction of some really great resources. And you could even do what I talked about in episode 23. Get a group of families together. Maybe a parent teaches math or science, or you guys hire a tutor for your cohort. But I will take care of English and history, and anyone between 7th and 12th grade could enroll. And normally, people might be wary of making a change at this age just because of college apps and whatnot, but I kind of think all that's out the window with COVID-19. I really don't think any college would object to you being proactive about your education at this time when basically everyone agrees that standards are slipping a little. To give you more specifics about what I've thought through at this point, again, this is still an idea, but here's where I am with it. We would start with ancient history the first year. And even if you've already taken ancient history, that's not a barrier because I will tailor the course to your age. The assignments and depth change so much with every subject as you get older. Don't feel like you can't enroll if you already have ancient history experience. Most people do repeat subjects to a certain extent between middle and high school at some point. And I mentioned that anyone between 7th and 12th grade can enroll, and I love this element of it so much because it allows siblings to be in a similar place with their learning. My cousins are the closest, coolest family. They're all such big travelers, and they're just amazing people. And I think a big part of that is that my aunt and uncle would hire a tutor every year to come teach them. And they would all do the same subject, but with varying levels of difficulty depending on the age and which kid we were talking about. But what this meant was they were all in the same headspace a lot growing up. One person wasn't kind of in World War II while the other person was in ancient Mesopotamia. I still remember visiting them once growing up, and literally at the dinner table, my family talks about nothing but sports, which is fine, but they, when they were kids, were talking about the Epic of Gilgamesh, and the brothers could talk about it together. And I really think one of the reasons they're so close is they had this shared academic experience. They also traveled a ton together. And again, when you're learning about the same thing, the travel is so much more enriching when you're in that headspace, when you're studying it. All of this is just something you don't get with the current model. But it is totally possible to do the same subject with different ages. You just tailor the depth and the difficulty for the grade. I'm someone who believes everything's figure-outable, as Marie Forleo would say. My mom has called me MacGyver since before I knew who MacGyver was because I really do believe there's a solution to every problem. So if the current options aren't exciting for you, I'd like to know. I've created a little survey at vocabbett.com, and I'll also email it to everyone on my list. Vocabbett isn't going anywhere. It would just grow with Vocabbett Academy. So if there is an appetite for this third option, I do need to get moving and figure out, how this would work from a legal perspective. I also need to upgrade the tech on the website, things like that. So I'm not asking anyone to commit yet. I'm very open about the fact that this is still an idea. But if you are interested, I would love to know so that I can gauge whether I should be moving forward on my end. I think this is a really good idea that could really improve your life, certainly next year and really long term. I mean, I talked about how my cousins are so close, and I think that really this shared academic experience is part of that. So let me know if you're interested. You can either shoot me an email at contact@vocabbett.com or take that survey, and I will talk to you guys on Thursday.